I apologize for the slight delay that we faced. We were supposed to start at 11, but nonetheless, we are almost on time. So, as mentioned earlier, this is the book launch, the first official book launch in Lahore. We had one in Islamabad recently. This book, which recently got published by the Center for Security Strategy and Policy Research and the Institute for Regional Studies, Islamabad, edited by Dr. Rabia Akhtar, presents Pakistan's perspective, containing 22 chapters, Pakistan's perspective on the May 2025 crisis. And, the chapters, we have been part of the, when this was all happening, and all the chapters, I'll say, present a unique and very interesting perspective from Pakistan's side, countering the narrative being given by the dear neighbors. I would request to officially proceed with today's proceeding. I'd like to invite Dr. Rabia Akhtar to the podium. Dr. Rabia Akhtar is Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of Lahore, a professor of international relations. She is the founding director of Center for Security Strategy and Policy Research and also School of Integrated Social Sciences at the University of Lahore. She did her PhD in security studies from Kansas State University. She's the author of Blind Eye, U.S. Non-Proliferation Policy Towards Pakistan from Ford to Clinton, which showcases her expertise in the field. Dr. Rabia also serves as the editor for Pakistan Politico, Pakistan's pioneering magazine on strategic and foreign affairs. Not only has Dr. Akhtar made a significant contributions to academia, but she also played a pivotal role in shaping foreign policy as member of Prime Minister Imran Khan's Advisory Council on Foreign Affairs from 2018 to 2022. She is a non-resident senior fellow at South Asia Center Atlantic Council, Washington, D.C., and a non-resident fellow at BASIC UK. She was a visiting fellow 2024-2025 at the project for managing the atom at the Belfer Center, Harvard Kennedy School, and currently she is a non-resident fellow at MTU. Dr. Rabia Akhtar also serves as visiting faculty at NATO Defense College, Rome, and ISODARCO, Italy. I would request Dr. Rabia Akhtar to please take the podium. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I would begin at the very outset by dedicating this book to two people. One, Dr. Rifat Hussain, who passed away earlier this year. He was my mentor and my teacher, and I am who I am because he taught me. And the second is Colonel Azam Qazi, who passed away yesterday. And I'm still processing the shock of his death because I was going to meet him and give him a copy of this book. And we had a conversation about it just the other day. He was Pakistan's outstanding military historian and has written a lot of books on military history. May you rest in peace, sir. Amen. So it gives me great joy to welcome you all to the Lahore edition of this launch of Strategic Reckoning. Lahore, with its spirit of intellectual inquiry and cultural depth, I think is the perfect place to host this conversation on Pakistan's security and strategic future. We also plan on hosting an authors roundtable where we'll have larger discussion on the subject with more conversation which goes deep. This book is simply not a collection of chapters. It is really a reckoning. It is a chance to look back at the May 2025 crisis and through it look ahead at the choices that lie before us. It is sober, evidence-based, and grounded in the lived experience of one of the most dangerous 4 days in the region's recent history. We have launched this book as an ebook because the idea is not to gatekeep information. The idea is not to put a price tag on the book. The idea is open dissemination across borders, across continents, so that people could get to read Pakistan's perspectives on the various dimensions of the May 2025 crisis. And a lot of people have been asking about the book. We are not going to be printing this book en masse. This is available on CISPR's website for free download, free sharing, free reading. I know a lot of people are in the habit of collecting books and putting them on their shelves and not getting to read them, but they want to own a copy. So I would want to encourage all of you to download the book, share it, read it with your friends, start the discourse in your own networks. The lessons that are shared here, can you just scroll it and then we'll just move on. So this is the link that we have widely shared on social media as well on CISPA's website. You can download the ebook here. Can you click on this button here, please? And it is going to lead you to the book, and you can download the 356 pages, which are free for you to interact with. And if you need individual chapters, I can even provide you individual chapters in PDF form. But the idea is free dissemination. Thank you so much, Aska. So the lessons from this book are profound. How quickly crises can escalate, how thin the line is between signaling and uncontrolled escalation, and how emerging technologies such as drones, precision missiles, AI-enabled ISR are shrinking the decision-making space for leaders on both sides. The book also reminds us that the battle is not fought only with weapons, but also with perceptions. And that's where all of you come in. The war of narratives, disinformation, and signaling mattered just as much as what happened on the battlefield as well. So in the new abnormal narrative, stability becomes a critical element of the broader strategic stability. In the immediate aftermath of the May 2025 crisis, as our region was still absorbing its tremors, some of Pakistan's finest scholars, diplomats, practitioners came together to document not only what transpired, but why it mattered and what it revealed about our future. So within an unforgivingly short time, they brought to these pages an uncommon depth, clarity, and passion. Ambassador Sardar Masood Khan traced the repression in Kashmir and showed as to how it led to the fires of May 2025. Lieutenant General Amir Riaz captured the lessons of escalation, management, and strategic maturity. Air Commodore retired Khalid Banoori detailed how Pakistan Air Force turned the tide. Rear Admiral Syed Faisal Ali Shah reminded us of the silent shields of our seas. Dr. Atiya Ali Kazmi chronicled Operation Bunyan Marsus, our measured retaliation. Dr. Brigadier Naim Saleh urged us to recalibrate strategic stability for a multi-domain future. Ambassador Zamir Akram argued the restraint must be consensus. Dr. Adil Sultan exposed the illusion of bluff in the full spectrum deterrence. Dr. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal reimagined Pakistan's conventional deterrence. Dr. Zahir Kazmi analyzed India's drift toward counterforce and away from restraint. Ijaz Haider dissected the spectacle of Indian media's war narrative. Dr. Rizwana Abbasi revealed the dangers of false flags and blame games. Dr. Salma Malik spoke for regional stakeholders carrying risks without agency. Dr. Rizwan Zeeb warned us of the weaponization of water, the Indus Waters Treaty, and the shadow of May 2025. Dr. Share Qazi questioned whether the world will always rush to broker our crisis. Thank you, Dr. Share. Thank you for being here as one of the panelists today as well. And Malik Qasim Mustafa examined India's crisis behavior in the erosion of norms. And Sayyid Ali Zia Jaffrey, thank you, Ali, for being here, unpack the grammar of crisis signaling and deterrence. So to all the authors of these chapters, I offer my profound thanks. You did not just analyze events, you became the chroniclers of history. I am profoundly grateful to General Khalid Kidwai, who graciously penned the outstanding preface for this book. His words remind us that deterrence is not mere theory. It is lived, it is practiced, it is safeguarded by those who built, protected, and matured Pakistan's nuclear capability. And his words are a reminder that Pakistan's deterrence logic is not born of fear, but of the foresight to see beyond the immediate battle, to safeguard a nation, a people, and a future. His intellectual guidance and decades of service will forever remain a beacon for all of us. No book is born without an army behind the scenes. So to my CISPR family, Sayyid Ali Zia Jaffrey, the Deputy Director CISPR, for proofreading, for feedback, and your own very insightful chapter. Thank you, Ali. Abdul Waris Hamid, who was the stage host standing here, Aska Tahir, and Munib Mohammed. Thank you for your tireless research assistance, your discipline, and your intellectual rigor. This is as much your achievement as it is mine. And none of this would have been possible without the unwavering support of the University of Lahore and its chairman, our Board of Governors, Mr. Awais Rauf, who has consistently backed scholarship that pushes boundaries and it believes in ideas that carry both the risk and the promise. But above all, ladies and gentlemen, I owe gratitude to Pakistan, as we all do. It is Pakistan's story, its struggles, and its spirit that have inspired every page that is written here. The warning could not be clearer. India's unchecked brinkmanship, driven by ideology and reckless recalibration, should alarm not only Pakistan, but the entire international community. In South Asia, the margin of error is vanishingly small, and the stakes are nothing less than nuclear catastrophe. This region is not just volatile, it is the fault line on which global security rests. As we launch this book in Lahore, let it stand not merely as a record of May 2025 crisis, but as a call to foresight as well as responsibility. Pakistan must think ahead, adapt to disruptive technologies, and safeguard deterrence with wisdom and resolve. And to conclude, this book ends with a chapter that I had the honor to write, a reckoning with India's doctrinal drift and slow death of equilibrium in South Asia. And in those pages, I argue what May 2025 has already shown us, that when a nuclear state toys with compellence and convinces itself that it can choreograph a limited war under the nuclear shadow, it unravels the very fabric of deterrence. India's brinkmanship was not strength, it was arrogance made policy. It was sheer hubris, which was dressed up as doctrine. And hubris in a nuclear age is lethal. It dares the world to trust that luck will always hold, that restraint will always prevail, that escalation can always be managed. But history teaches us otherwise. The descent from miscalculation to catastrophe is swift, sometimes measured in hours, not days. The lesson of this book, therefore, is unambiguous. This arrogance will not end in another contained skirmish. It will end in a war no one can control, a fire no border can hold, and a ruin that this world will share. That is why India's recklessness is not just South Asia's nightmare alone, it is a warning for our collective humanity. The descent from arrogance to apocalypse, from miscalculation to catastrophe can be terrifyingly swift. And if the world does not act to rein in such recklessness, it will only wake up one day to the catastrophe that it had every chance to prevent. So, as editor of this book, I stand humbled, humbled by the brilliance of my colleagues, humbled by the trust of my nation, humbled by the realization that history is not written in books alone. It is written in blood, in sacrifice, and in courage. So I end with a prayer for Pakistan. May we be worthy of your grace. May we be worthy of the sacrifice of those who came before us. May we be worthy of the country that continues to give us everything. Pakistan Hamesha Zindabad.
Thank you so much, Rabia, Dr. Rabia. Uh, Indeed, a very insightful talk with, going through all the chapters one by one, and all of them are worth reading. But we have a few of the authors. Not all of them could be here today, but we had a few of them, couple of them actually, and one of them is Dr. Share Qazi. Dr. Share Qazi, I think, is one of the stars of the Lahore Strat community. And I'll call Dr. Share on stage. Dr. Share is currently assistant professor at the Department of Political Science at the University of Punjab. He holds a doctorate in international relations with his dissertation focusing on nuclear diplomacy in South Asia. He also holds a certificate of merit in academic excellence in strategic and nuclear studies from National Defense University, Islamabad. He is the author of the book titled Escalation Patterns in South Asia, Future of Credible Minimum Deterrence. He frequently contributes to academic journals and policy outlets on warfighting doctrines, nuclear strategy, and emerging tech. His research interests include maritime strategy, South Asian security issues, and nuclear deterrence dynamics. Dr. Qazi has been a visiting fellow at the Stimson Center's South Asia program. His chapter titled Broker No More, Rethinking Relevance of Third Parties in the Future of South Asia is a great insight into what roles third party have been playing historically within South Asia and what does the future hold. Dr. Qazi, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Varis. Ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador Shahid Malik, Professor Dr. Abia. So this feels like a homecoming for me because I was part of the University of Lahore and I still continue to be. And this particular event that we have and the book that we wrote is testament to my unwavering commitment to Dr. Abia's vision of making Pakistan more secure and to bringing it to a point where it is recognized. So coming to the summary of my chapter, just a brief one. The whole idea that we were debating or dealing with when we were writing this chapter, particularly within the premise of the book, was, is it possible for two nuclear weapon states to be called risky or unreasonable? That's what the common parlance is, that they do not have the capacity or the capability to solve their own problems. And what they usually do is resort to brinkmanship. But my chapter takes a different perspective on this. The internationalization of the May 2025 crisis is testament to the fact that recklessness and strategic restraint cannot hold the fort together. One has to pave the way for the other, or one has to die for the other to live. And if what we've learned from the Pakistani behavior or the strategic dispositions that we have had is that Pakistan continued to abide by strategic restraint, all the while signaling its intent that it is not the only partner in nuclear deterrence that is somewhat committed to do so. So if the international community feels that there is a risk, which they did, and there is a catastrophe looming at the end, which it does, and deterrence has all the possibilities of total failure, which can happen, and this needs to be prevented, which is necessary, and it needs to be stopped, which is essential, the underline behind this entire conundrum is that it has to be done bilaterally and not unilaterally. So Pakistan's response was, we would abide by strategic restraint, not as a compulsion, but as a choice. And if this choice paradigm is not understood by our neighbor next door, and brinkmanship is what they resort to every step of the way, on every crisis, in every situation, then let it be known that Pakistan's responses would be flexible. But then coming to the whole idea of what this particular crisis means, is it a crisis or a war? That jargon has to be set straight in Pakistan. The people of Pakistan, the intellectual community of Pakistan, the young students in Pakistan need to know the differences between wars and crises. Now, even though we've lived one of our own, the younger generation, we've seen Kargil and the others as well, but the younger generation has seen its first one, which means that this would have a deep impact on their level of thinking, on the level of responses that we contemplate the next time, unfortunately, or God forbid, something like this happens again, which means that we need to be ready for whatever responses are necessary, for whatever strategies are essential, whatever choices are imperative for us to take. And I think this book would serve as a timestamp in history to allow scholars, younger generations, to understand exactly what we meant by strategic restraint and what we meant by escalatory choices, and what do we mean by a crisis in the making. I believe that Dr. Abia's efforts, CISPR's efforts, have always been to somehow act like a pathfinder for everybody to walk this particular stepping stone and then find their way into the deterrence factor of South Asian problems. I wouldn't say it conundrum because it's not a conundrum. The world beyond Modi, I can't predict, but his identity and his ideology may live on for a few more decades in India, which means that Pakistan's problems with dealing with a hostile neighbor who believes that deterrence is the name of recklessness and saber rattling is the only form of communication is something that has to be addressed effectively. Now, Pakistan's position has never been apologetic, rather, it has been cautious. But in our intellectual conversations that we have in closed doors, behind curtains, is that maybe we appear to be apologetic. And I think this book would stand as a reminder that we are not apologetic. Rather, we are responsible. We understand the risks, we understand the damage we can cause, We understand that if deterrence fails in this region, it can have catastrophic consequences. We do understand the risks, not just to the security of the particular region, but to the world around. And if we are behaving responsibly, we should not be termed as loose or reckless. We should be termed as equivalent to the whatever the strategic community of the world believes to be at par with the semblance of the understanding of deterrence. And I think this book is our way of saying that if the literature around us does not call us responsible for at least once in our life, we don't care. We would like to generate our own, disseminate it across the planet. The reason why this book is free, available in PDF on a digital space, because that makes it more accessible, makes it more readable. Yes, criticizable. You can do that, absolutely rights to do so, but it gets the word out. I think this is the first time we're getting the word out properly by addressing whatever the needs are. And I would like to thank Dr. Rabia and her team, for which I was a part of my lovely 2 years that I was at the University of Lahore. I still cherish those memories. And I would like to thank Dr. Rabia for this effort. I would like to thank her for recognizing that we, the younger generation, can be a part of something big, can be a part of something essential and something crucial. And I would like to continue this effort, and I would like to put my share in whenever, wherever, and however it's required. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Share. It was actually a very nice one. And since you feel CISPER is home, we still feel that you're part of the CISPER team since we meet so often. And thank you so much for your contributions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to come to the second strategic surprise after Rafael's finding PL-15 behind them is Alizia Jaffrey being in Lahore, flying all the way from the US and being here just for this, I hope, and let's say for this. So I would like to request Alizia Jaffrey, who's also one of the contributing authors to this edited volume, and happens to be my first reporting boss. So Alizia Jaffrey, apart from many things, is Deputy Director, CISPER, and an Associate Editor at Pakistan Politico. Ali was Visiting Fellow at the Stimson Center, Washington. Ali regularly writes on strategic issues for national and international publications, to include Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist, Routledge, South Asian Voices, the National Interest, the Atlantic Council, Asia Pacific Leadership Network, and many more. And he often shares his perspectives on major strategic developments on national and international media. He's associated with the British American Security Information Council, BASIC UK. His research interests lie in the field of nuclear deterrence, strategic stability, and geopolitics. He has taught undergraduate level courses on foreign policy, national security, arms control and disarmament, and non-proliferation from 2018 until 2023. He's also a graduate research assistant at the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies, California, and his chapter is titled Signaling Stability, Crisis Communication, and Grammar of Deterrence in South Asia. Alizia Jaffrey, I would request you to please come on the podium. And this is going live.
Thank you so much, Waris, for such a generous introduction. Sorry, I have a bad throat. So anybody who remotely knows me would know the impact of Dr. Rabia Akhtar on my life. In this book, you will hear the word full spectrum deterrence all the time. So I call her my full spectrum mentor. And at times she's ruthless, at times she's not. So that's that, but I'm not here to talk about her impact on my life. I'm here to talk about the book and the rationale behind the book. One of the reasons as to why I have gotten along with Dr. Rabia over the past 8 years almost is her unwavering commitment to Pakistan. Allow me to say this, that the commitment that she has shown to Pakistan and all that she has done, I hope that commitment is shown by people who are responsible to the country. I may get a reprimand after this, but still, that's for later. So I was told about this book in July, and I immediately figured out why was Dr. Rabe taking up this endeavor. We, over the past so many years, have been fighting, debating, and reasoning with our Indian counterparts at conferences, track two dialogues, and at various fellowships and symposia. And over the course of those years, we have realized that uh, their proclivity to reasoning debate has declined precipitously. Propaganda, fake news, misinformation, and disinformation have been rampant in India. Unfortunately, in our country, the books that are produced to counter those are also full of propaganda. So, this book, this effort was Pakistan's first intellectual response to India's propaganda. You cannot fight propaganda with propaganda. You have to fight propaganda with academic rigor, which is rooted in nuance and an ability to look beyond the future. So all the chapters, if you look at the book, are very seamlessly aligned. The first part of the book talks about the military aspects of the crisis, how the three services did their part, and how they synergized as a tri-services component. The authors of those chapters have spent decades dealing with those issues, and they brought a very rich practitioner's perspective on the table, which would not have been possible without Dr. Abha's ability to convince them to produce the book in such a short span of time. So I was given this chapter on signaling and deterrence and all that, and I was very happy on getting this chapter because for a long, long time I have been thinking about India's drift towards compellence rather than deterrence. My chapter, the first part of the chapter talks about the concept of coercion and how the two sides of coercion, compellence and deterrence, play out. And then my chapter talks about the element that connects capabilities with deterrence, which is signaling. Pakistan has been signaling deterrent threats as part of its nuclear policy since 1998. And that signaling has relied on two things. It has relied on a balanced approach between resolve and restraint. Dr. Share, a good friend of mine, he talked about Pakistan not being apologetic. I agree with that. Unfortunately, restraint has been taken as the second name of passivity. So this book, the one point that my chapter and the book bring to the table is that Pakistan signaled restraint and resolve, not passivity. Restraint is a sign of strength, not that of weakness. So this is why I believe books like this are really important. Over the past 4 months, India has tried its level best to present Pakistan as a passive actor. And one of the things that most of the chapters, including mine, have talked about is India's deliberate refusal to deny Pakistan its agency. It may sound funny to us when we hear Modi diss Trump for naming the ceasefire and taking credit for it. But believe you me, this is very dangerous. When a nuclear armed state tries to create an impression that it can enter and exit a crisis on its own terms against a nuclear armed state, it portends trouble for the future. Pakistan, throughout this crisis and since Modi took power, has focused on telling India one thing. We have the capability and the resolve to use that capability if challenged. But if you go back to deterrence literature, you go back to Schelling, you go back to Jervis, deterrence is incomplete without reassurances. Pakistan's signaling has always had that element of reassurances. You look at any statement by the Pakistani leadership, that statement says, we have done this to India. We carried out airstrikes. We carried out rocket strikes. We have done our bit. Now we will stop if India stops. This is reassurance mixed into deterrent signaling. India, on the other hand, not only in this crisis, but also since 2016, has signaled its willingness and propensity to use brute force. Brute force, as many of my able colleagues and friends would say, is antithetical to deterrence. When we talk about brute force, we must say the enemy is not signaling deterrence; it is signaling compellence. As Dr. Rabia rightly said, when a nuclear armed state signals compellence, it is bad news. Deterrence is eroded. Pakistan showed exemplary restraint, but as many of the chapters in the book rightly point out, this restraint is being tested quite brazenly. So this restraint, there will come a point when Pakistan will have to give up its restraint, not because of not through its own choosing, but because of India's recklessness and ability and a desire to use compellence as a part of its strategy. I know I have a habit of going above time, and Dr. Rabia has on many occasions taken away my mic. So I would like to end like I would like to end by the other day when we were working on the book, so I'm a cricket aficionado. Everybody knows that. So I remember Shoaib Akhtar, the Rawalpindi Express of cricket, delivering a 161.3 kilometer per hour ball to Nick Knight on Feb 22, 2003. And that remains the fastest delivery. So the other day I told Dr. Rabia, and I tweeted that as well, that if Shoaib Akhtar is the Rawalpindi Express of cricket, Dr. Rabia, who hails from Rawalpindi, is the Rawalpindi Express of academia, who delivered this book at a speed of 161.4 kilometers per hour. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ali. It is a pleasure to indeed have you back. But you talked about Dr. Abia's impact on your life, and I'm sure you can write a book about it. But then there are certain implications on her life as well. I think they have to do the volume 2 of it. So, yeah, I think they can co-author. So, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll find a way. So, thank you so much, Alizia Jaffrey, once again for your insights and being here in Lahore. I'll thank Dr. Share once again, both the authors, and now for the third speaker for today on the panel, we have Sima Aman. Sima is not one of the authors, but is a defense expert, hailing from probably Rawalpindi as well, but now in Lahore. So Lahore strategic community is growing as we are exporting people from Islamabad to Lahore. Sima Aman is a independent researcher with over a decade of experience in the field of strategic studies. He has previously served in the Arms Control and Disarmament Affairs Directorate of Pakistan's Strategic Plans Division, and later as a senior researcher in multiple think tanks in Islamabad and in Lahore. She has been a fellow of Stimson Center's South Asia program and the Center for Non-Proliferation Studies in Monterey, California. Her research focuses on nuclear issues, strategic stability, and emerging technologies with particular emphasis on South Asia. She has published extensively in leading national and international outlets. Alongside research, she teaches at various universities in Lahore, including University of Management and Technology and University of Central Punjab, courses on defense and strategic studies and arms control and disarmament. She is currently pursuing her PhD in international relations at the University of Punjab. Sima Aman.
Thank you, Waris. Ambassador Shahid Malik, Professor Dr. Abia Akhtar, my very own teacher and mentor, someone that I always take pride in, and someone who kept me in the field when I was leaving it and leaving for Camera because of change of circumstances. So, it is an honor to be here. It is an honor to be here. I will like to share a few of my reflections in how I looked at the book based on the context of the May 2025 crisis, the escalation part of it. And the crisis underscored a reality that we have long realized and recognized, which is that escalation in South Asia is no longer a step-by-step ladder. It has become a compressed, multi-domain cascade in which decisions play out simultaneously across the air, land, sea, cyber domains, while the economic as well as the political instruments further accelerate the pace and shorten the decision timeframes. Now, this is why strategic reckoning, ladies and gentlemen, is timely. The chapters in this volume, from General Kidwai's preface all the way to General Amir Riaz's operational insights, and finally to Dr. Abia Akhtar's framing of this new abnormal, they converge on one single point. And the previous speakers have talked about it as well, that crisis management and not nuclear brinkmanship is the true determinant of stability in the South Asian environment. Now, three dynamics stand out from the 2025 confrontation, and they are reflected throughout the book. And I'm going to talk about them briefly here. The first is that escalation is multi-domain and non-linear. Within minutes of the Pahalgam terror attack in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, India started blaming Pakistan. Within days, we witnessed military strikes against civilian targets in mainland Pakistan. Later, we both saw that both sides mobilized across several domains. And the crisis has demonstrated one thing, which is that South Asia may well be entering into an era where escalation is neither predictable nor sequential. And this is an important lesson. The second one that I want to talk about is that restraint is not a weakness, but a design. Now, Jalal Kidwai emphasized in his preface that the full spectrum deterrence reinforced the creation of the Army Rocket Force Command. And I think this is an important point because it's first time in any of the academic writings from Pakistan that this has been discussed. It ensures that nuclear use remains the last resort. So responsibility and restraint as a means of a design. Pakistan's tri-services response, which included calibrated artillery, measured air operations, naval signaling, all showed restraint by design. Now, it was not about avoiding retaliation. It was about raising the threshold of nuclear use and also preserving off-ramps. What some misread as hesitation was in fact discipline. The third point I want to make is about crisis management. And I feel that crisis management is decisive is something that has been a recurring message throughout the book. Lieutenant General Amir Riaz walks us through the operational handling of the episode. And he emphasizes on operational clarity, command and control, credible conventional options that avoided early nuclear signaling. However, the book also reminds us, and this is important, that the fog of war and propaganda nearly derailed restraint. Misperceptions about aircraft losses, the politics of attribution, information operations, and India's effort to redefine thresholds all undermine the fragility of communication. Now, there are a lot of themes that I wanted to talk about, but for the interest of time, I will talk about some of the operational lessons that we get from the book. If we talk about the military chapters in the book, there is a granular account about air engagements, losses, missile interceptions, how they were carried out, naval deployments that acted as silent but powerful deterrents, and recalibrated retaliatory campaign that was codenamed as Bunyanul Makhsus. Now, let us be clear, ladies and gentlemen, that these choices were not chaotic improvisations. They were choices made by the politico-military elite and command of Pakistan under pressure, with the political and nuclear overhang clearly in their mind. The operational narrative is important. Why? Because it shows how doctrine, training, command and control arrangements can buy time for political channels to work. If with responsibility and strategic maturity. General Amir Yag basically in his chapter stresses on three key lessons as I look at it, and I'm going to talk about them briefly. Pakistan's conduct during the crisis reflected operational clarity rather than any emotional reaction. The response was anchored in a robust command control with the political and military leadership coordinating moves deliberately and with discipline. And just as importantly, Pakistan's conventional readiness, from its AWACS to the rocket artillery to that of drones, everything provided it credible, non-nuclear options, which enabled Pakistan to give an effective response without the need for nuclear signaling. Now, these lessons that I have talked about here, they talk about the combination of two things, prudence and resolve. And both were amply demonstrated by Pakistan in not provocating but preserving stability. I do want to talk about some of the work that Dr. Kazmi talks about in her, Dr. Athiya Kazmi, because there are two Dr. Kazmis in the book. In her chapter, she is talking about the multi-domain operations as they were carried out. And she underscores that this was not just an air or a land clash, because within a short span of just 72 hours, drones, cyber operations, naval maneuvers unfolded in parallel. Pakistan's retaliatory campaign employed armed drones, precision short-range missiles, and strikes on military bases. Now, these are the tactics that have never been seen employed in a crisis ever before. Both sides deployed network sensors, long-range missiles, and let me warn that these are the ones, as she rightly in her chapter as well, that lead to collapsing of the buffer zones in escalation and crisis. So the argument she makes is profound. Multi-domain conflict magnifies the risk of miscalculation. Crisis management now has to account for cyber, space, and information operations as much as it has to account for missiles and jets. Now, two observations about strategic stability that I'd like to share here. Dr. Naeem Salek, in his chapter on recalibrating strategic stability, warns that India has effectively embraced a brinkmanship model. And I'd like to quote from what he says. The model posits that the threat of nuclear use to generate uncontrollable escalation risks may encourage states to accept the risk of escalation to a nuclear exchange to obtain concessions from an adversary. And he further notes that stability now rests on a web of interlinked factors, doctrines, conventional balances, missile defenses, cyber, space, and then he moves on to call for an arms control style arrangement for the region where there are doctrines that are clearer and there is a renewed confidence building amongst the states. Because he feels, and I share this understanding, and I think the rest of the book also talks about it, the next confrontation without these measures could spiral out of control in very dangerous ways. Dr. Azim Sultan, in his chapter about makes an interesting observation, where he says, and this is something that he shares with Jalil Bhai, and he says that when India considers Pakistan, it has serious considerations. Because Pakistan did, in the face of Indian belligerence, was strategic maturity and readiness. I could quote from it, but I'll just move to the last part of my talk. Yeah, I'm just going to. I wanted to talk a bit about the role of the third parties, and I thought "Broker No More" was not just a provocative title, but it's also a sober warning that the region cannot blindly assume immediate and even-handed outside rescue in every future crisis. Now that the world is moving towards multipolarity, we are seeing how the geopolitics is reshaping, and one cannot rely every time on someone else to come to peace for you when your stakes are too high. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, in the end, I'd like to say that strategic reckoning is simply not a record of the May 2025 crisis. It gives us both a warning as well as a vision. And I think it's very profound when you look at a book ending on such a somber note. The warning is against mistaking restraint for weakness, and a call to reimagine deterrence in multi-domain terms, and a reminder that crisis stability in South Asia is at best fragile. The question before us now is whether this new abnormal hardens into permanence or whether restraint by design becomes the guiding principle. In the end, the choice before us is two distant pathways that Dr. Rabia has presented to us. One is a grim one, and the other path is hopeful, which is that Pakistan's restraint is matched by Indian reflection, stability is prioritized over adventurism, and international stakeholders help build off ramps rather than deepen the divides in the region. Let me end by one final thought. As someone who watches these dynamics, we need to treat escalation not as a ladder in the sense that you can safely climb up, and you can step down from. Because in South Asia, this ladder has now become a very hazardous slope. You don't know what's it's gonna. Some people are even calling it not a ladder and an escalator now, because you switch, you turn on the button and you are on a separate floor, and then you begin from there. And considering that it has been a pause between India and Pakistan now, we might even consider that the next crisis begins at an elevated step as a beginning. Finally, I'd like to say that as General Kadwai reminded us, that this volume is also a tribute to Pakistan's three services, to the galaxy of the strategic minds who have authored its chapters. Some of them have recently been my teachers, some have already been, and some of them have been friends and mentors earlier as well. And above all, to Dr. Abir Akhtar, who actually has marshaled this brilliance at hypersonic speeds. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Sima Aman, for your, very taking every chapter one by one, and मुझे डर है कि शायद लोग book पढ़े भी ना. There's a chance that people might skip it and watch this video once again. But thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm privileged to present to you the guest of honor for today's ceremony, Ambassador Shahid Malik. We have been talking about crisis since the day started, and we have been talking about. Saima just mentioned that there were off-ramps were being protected, and Shahid Malik has been at the helm of affairs for a long time, where Pakistan and India were not talking to each other, were talking to each other, and then Pakistan-US relations as well. So I would like to request Ambassador Shahid Malik. But let me just say a few words before he's here on the stage. Ambassador Malik is a distinguished career diplomat who joined Pakistan's Foreign Service in 1972 after completing his master's in economics from the University of Punjab. Over the course of his career, he served in key postings across the globe, including Charge d'Affaires in Tokyo, Minister Counselor in Washington, High Commissioner to Canada, Ambassador to Venezuela, and Deputy High Commissioner and High Commissioner to India. He has been in India as High Commissioner for 5.5 years. And before that, he was there for 4.5 years as Deputy High Commissioner. At the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, he has held senior positions, including Director General and Additional Foreign Secretary. Ambassador Malik has also served as Chief Instructor and Director at Pakistan Civil Services Academy. Since retirement, Ambassador Malik has remained actively engaged in policy circles through lectures, writings, and discussions on diplomacy and regional affairs, carrying forward his rich legacy of service and expertise. Sir, the floor is yours.
Good morning and Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to express my gratitude and thanks to Dr. Rabia for having considered me worthy of speaking to this knowledgeable audience. Friends, distinguished audience, members of the faculty from the university. My only regret is that it was just, we're talking in terms of hours now. Only 72 hours or 60 hours later that I was asked by Dr. Rabia to come and talk about the book. And let me assure you, Rabia, that I went through all the articles, downloaded them diligently. The book is right here. And till nearly 3 a.m. I was at it because I had to come and speak here on this, and also because it is so engrossing and gripping that I just didn't want to keep it away. So the compliment to you for having produced, edited such a worthwhile book. In your introduction, sir, you told the distinguished audience of my service, which includes 2 postings in India, which is a little unusual, but no regrets on that score at all, because it was one of the most exciting periods of my career as Deputy High Commissioner, Acting High Commissioner, and then High Commissioner, the longest serving High Commissioner. So it is a real privilege to be here today to speak on strategic reckoning, perspectives on deterrence and escalation post-Pahalgam, edited by Dr. Rabia Akhtar. This timely volume provides the views of some of the foremost experts with impeccable credentials. I know most of them. I really have a very good idea of their writings, of their acumen, and how well versed they are on the subject. Though I did not have the pleasure of having the book, but what you sent to me a couple of days ago, I think that serves the purpose of having seen it and gone through it. As very rightly pointed out by you, Rabia, South Asia is at a perilous crossroads. New Delhi has come up with a new normal in dealing with perceived future threats. This is an environment of perpetual crisis instability, so well described by you. The possibility of escalation triggered by India could be suicidal, to say the least. A word of caution and concern has been voiced by Dr. Akhtar. One only hopes it does not come to that stage ever. Instead, Islamabad's well-crafted policy of responsible deterrence, played out with sobriety and maturity, is what is needed and what we saw. But let there be no doubt in anyone's mind that it does not mean that we will be cowed down or remain passive in the face of any further aggression by India. We do not seek hegemony, but at the same time would not tolerate any hegemonistic designs by any other country. So that is the policy, and that is how it should be. The ineffective Indian official narrative following the May 2025 crisis has no takers anywhere. I was traveling recently in Europe and in London and other places. And in my interaction with different people and think tanks, this was the common strain amongst them, that India has not been able to provide the evidence which would convince us of India's narrative. So I think that is something that we should be conscious of. Very quickly, I would like to comment on some of the observations made by the authors. Let me start with my good friend, General Amir Riaz. He and I are involved in some other issues also related to India. I couldn't agree more with General Amir Riaz when he says a military conflict between two nuclear powers is insane. He calls it insane, and rightly so. I'm reminded here of my stay, my first posting in Tokyo, where the Gaimosho or the Japanese Foreign Office would invite diplomats every year to visit Hiroshima on the 6th of August. And that was a stark reminder of, the atomic fallout. At the entrance to the hospital, where the survivors of that time, 1945, are still under treatment because of the effects of radiation, at the entrance, and I read a bit of Japanese, it says, you are going to meet people who envy the dead. So, that was in Japanese and I could read it. You will be meeting patients inside who envy the dead. That is the state in which they are now, suffering from leukemia and other diseases, radiation effects, etc., etc. General Amir Riaz describes it well when he says that the key conclusion is that disputes between nuclear powers should be managed through well-established channels with an endeavor to either manage or resolve the issues of conflict. Coming next to a very scholarly piece by General Kidwai. He has spelled out the essential contours of the policy, the full spectrum doctrine. And I was just introduced to a new concept, full spectrum mentor. And rightly so. Yeah. Equally important is rubbishing of Modi's bombastic rhetoric about not accepting what he labeled as Pakistan's nuclear blackmail. The assurances come from a person, that is General Kidwai, whose contribution to our nuclear policies is exemplary, unmatched. He says with authority and confidence that Pakistan's nuclear policy is based on the robust, operationalized nuclear capability, which in itself draws strength from a fully functional triad and its effects, and an effective command and control system. All this is noteworthy and has been well reflected and analyzed in his article and in the book. Coming to my respected colleague and friend, Ambassador Jawhar Salim, his observation on the implications of Pakistan, I'd like to read out his views with what I am in complete agreement. For Pakistan, the May 2025 confrontation reinforced its long-standing view that India has embraced a coercive strategic shift, deliberately testing thresholds under the cover of nuclear deterrence. In response, Pakistan has pursued a three-pronged approach. First, signaled its readiness to mount quid pro quo plus. Now, this is important. It's an important phrase. Quid pro quo, fine. but it is going to be quid pro quo plus. Measured yet firm military actions that neutralize Indian coercion without inviting uncontrolled escalation. Second, it has invested in multi-domain capabilities, including advancements in cyber, space, and unmanned systems to offset India's conventional superiority. Third, it has mobilized diplomatic coalitions engaging different countries and sympathetic partners in Europe to portray itself as the restraint-seeking party and to highlight the risks of India's destabilizing behavior. Let me now come to another excellent article in the book by my good friend Zamir Akram. Zamir and I incidentally served together in Delhi many, many years ago. I agree with his observation that to lower the heightened Pakistan tensions, Pakistan-India tension, both countries require a shared commitment to ensuring strategic stability. Efforts towards this end need to begin with the resumption of bilateral dialogue or acceptance of third-party mediation. Now, this is a tall order. जिस तरह फैज साहब ने कहा है, यूं ना था मैंने फकत चाहा था यूं हो जाए. So, wishful thinking on our part, we have tried our best to engage India at every possible level. I have been involved in that, but there are no takers. It has not been easy. In some manner, initially, internally, if you like, I am also currently involved in some sort of discussion on the other side, completely unofficial in nature. Let's start with the point that I want to make, have been making, and others have been making. In fact, at a book launch about 2 years ago, the former Indian High Commissioners who had served in Pakistan, the book launch, Mr. Lamba's book launch, 6 or 7 of them, all those who had served there, Shiv Shankar Menon, Raghavan, and others, knowledgeable people, they impressed upon the government that it is time for India to engage with Pakistan. And let's start with what they call baby steps, and then gradually build up to that. But as we know, it just falls on deaf ears. Nothing has taken place. The point I'm trying to make that within India, there are sane voices which would like the two countries to at least start with each other. Some sort of a dialogue is better than no contact at all. So Zamir has made that point and very well articulated. Take measures aimed at improving the relation, dispute resolution. All we need to do is start with small steps, and they can lead to bigger ones. Today, Pakistan and India are back on the brink, so to speak. There remains the heightened risk of a full-blown crisis since no bilateral mechanisms are in operation today. The illegal suspension or holding in abeyance of the Indus Water Treaty is yet another example of India's designs. There is a very good article here about the Indus Water Treaty. Because of the shortage of time, I would like to go into that. By Dr. Rizwan Zaid on weaponizing water. He has rightly pointed out that in the emerging scenario on the issue, Pakistan must prepare for all contingencies. That water wars are no longer a metaphor, but a plausible trajectory needs to be devised. As I've already covered some of it. Allow me to conclude by giving some examples from my own sort of stay and the comparisons. I was the High Commissioner when the Mumbai terror attacks took place in 2008. About 178, 200 people died from different nationalities, mainly Indians. Unfortunate what happened. It was the Congress government at that time. But look at the reaction, look at the contrasting reaction. The High Commissions continued, the High Commissioners continued in their positions, both countries. There was a temporary suspension in the composite dialogue process. Composite dialogue to me offered and still offers the best hope of talking to India, because the composite dialogue has 8 agreed subjects between the two sides. So if one really wants to make a serious start, let's revive the composite dialogue process. India keeps harping about terrorism, that we would like to talk about terrorism. My message to them whenever I meet them or in different interactions, we have no problem with that. We have our own issues to talk to India about terrorism. So why should we be shy of discussing terrorism with India? But it should not stop there. Terrorism, as you know, is one of the 8 agreed subjects in the composite dialogue process. It includes Kashmir, it includes Siachen, Sirkri, trade, people-to-people contact, water, and terrorism. So we can start with that. I don't really see any problem why we would be averse to start a discussion with India on terrorism, because we have our own issues to talk about. The contrast that I was talking about, in 2009 July, Mumbai happened in 2008 November. In 2009 July, I was still the High Commissioner. Within 10 months or so, the two prime ministers, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani, they met in Sharm el-Sheikh on the sidelines of the NAM summit. I was called from Delhi to be there. And a decision was taken between the two sides on the sidelines when they met, that the composite dialogue will restart. I'm just trying to give you the scenario, present day scenario. Today, I don't really see any such desire on the part of the BJP government. And it was pointed out here, rightly so, that after Modi, next. As a matter of fact, my own assessment is that Modi is in his 3rd term. Whoever takes over, whether it's Amit Shah or Yogi Adityanath or whoever, it will be a BJP, regrettably, a BJP coalition government. The new prime minister at that time, after 2 years, will not be in a position to take even the baby steps, because he would have just taken office. So anything that could possibly happen is in these 2 years. And for that, we need a catalyst. And that we have friends all over. Even if a start is made to have talks for talks, even that is an improvement over the current state of affairs. But look at the contrast. Mumbai terror attacks, back on the negotiating table, the dialogue process restarted. Today, we have a completely different scenario. So, the point that I wanted to make is that what has been said in the book, and based on my own personal experiences, I think this is a very timely book that has come out. I would suggest that not just an e-book sort of a thing, but it should come out in print form, because it should go all over. And I commend Dr. Rabi Akhtar and all the contributors and those who have spoken here for their intellectual rigor and dedication in advancing the discourse on this subject. I look forward to engaging in further discussions as we continue to reflect on the critical lessons presented in the volume. I'm available anytime that you would like me to come and interact with you. Thank you very much once again for giving me this opportunity to speak on this. Ji? Okay.
So, since Malik is here, I would request agar aapke paas we have some questions from the audience, so we can take those.
अगर कोई हैं सवालात पाकिस्तान इंडिया के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में और एनीथिंग एल्स
Sir, let me moderate for you. We can club a few questions and then bring them to you.
माइक में बोलिएगा प्लीज.
This is Qazi and I'm MPhil student from the University of Lahore. So my question is that India for a longer time trying to get away from the dialogue with Pakistan. So how long India will keep doing this exercise and this getting? How do you foresee it, especially after this crisis? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very valid observation, important question. I wish I had the crystal ball. मैं देख के अंदाजा लगा सकूं. But whatever little I know of this issue, I don't really foresee any immediate breakthrough. ये नहीं है कि कल कुछ हो जाएगा और बातचीत हो जाएगी. There are certain domestic compulsions also which one must keep in mind. अभी 2 महीने के बाद इंडिया के बिहार के इलेक्शंस, वहां पे स्टेट इलेक्शंस होते हैं, बारी बारी होते हैं. National elections take place in their own time, but Bihar elections, state elections are very important. So in the immediate future, I don't really see any movement on that front, जिस पे आपने इशारा किया है. लेकिन there are voices within India now, बाहर तो हैं, impressing upon India. We are always ready to open some sort of a dialogue. And today, as you can see, fast changing world, जो कल के दुश्मन थे आज के दोस्त हैं, कल के दोस्त आज के दुश्मन हैं. इंडिया के ताल्लुकात चीन के साथ बेहतर हो रहे हैं, हमारे अमेरिका के साथ और बेहतर हो गए हैं. Now there are countries that are friends which we have and which India has, who would I'm sure would like the 2 nuclear powers to sit down across the table and talk about the issues. So that gives me a ray of hope that maybe during Modi's current term, there could be an opportunity where we may see the 2 sides getting down to it. अभी तो हालात ऐसे हैं कि आपने SARC का सुना होगा. SARC, I was the first ever director for SARC in the Foreign Office 25 years ago. I think it is quite an ineffective organization only because of India's attitude. Under the SARC charter, unless all countries are represented at that level, a SARC summit cannot take place. Since the last 4 years, it has been 4 or 5 years, it has been our turn to host the summit. India refuses to come. And now that could have been a possibility where, people from leaders from South Asia would meet and talk about, although the SARC charter says that contentious bilateral issues cannot be discussed under SARC. But the very fact that somebody comes and meets each other, to on the sidelines, choti moti baatein ho jati. We have even offered virtual summit. If somebody finds it difficult to physically travel, although I don't see the reason why, but even if that is the argument, virtual summit has also been offered by Pakistan. I'm just giving an example that on no front has there been a movement from the other side. Lekin, let's hope that with the changing scenario, there are friends who would like the 2 countries to put their act together. We are volunteers in that. We are willing for that. But it takes 2 to tango. So let's hope one day. Assalamualaikum. Which event was that?
2009, post Mumbai.
Achha.
So we were there, we were having visits off and on. But after Modi, we have seen that they are not giving any sort of visas to Pakistanis. And now, when you are predicting that in future, if BJP alliance come to power, do you see any sort of continuation of that opposite dialogue or the visa relaxation in their future?
देखिए, they are all interconnected. आपकी जो बात है बिल्कुल सही. I recall that time. Connectivity, people to people contacts. One of the 8 subjects जो है composite dialogue, उसमें ये भी शामिल है, people to people contact. Visa agreement, relaxation in visas. We have agreements which look very good on paper. For example, religious pilgrimage. यहाँ से ज़ायरीन जाते हैं अजमेर शरीफ, साल में 2 दफा उनको जाने की इजाजत है. वहां से आते हैं कतासराज, इधर जहां पे उनके मकान. हमने कभी उनको नहीं रोका आने से. लेकिन even for religious pilgrimage, which is part of the agreement, even that is denied by India. और कोई ना कोई बहाना, कोई ना कोई excuse. अभी recently कुछ शुरू हुआ है, medical visas. You know, there are so many people here who would like to go for some liver transplant वगैरह. वहाँ पे facilities बेहतर हैं, सस्ता है, across the border है. So even that has become very difficult. Businessmen. Earlier, businessmen were allowed to travel freely under the SARC, जिनके पास SARC का sticker होता था. After this recent thing, उन्होंने SARC visa holders जो थे पाकिस्तान में, उनको भी खत्म कर दिया. So one possibility which was left, amongst the measures that one could take, the other doable, देखिए 2 चीजें होती हैं, एक desirable, एक doable. One can start with the doables first. Desirable अपनी जगह पे हैं, one should not ignore them, but the doables can lead to the desirables. उसमें visa policy, हम अभी भी, believe me, we are still, even today, we are very liberal in giving visas to any Indian national wanting to come to Pakistan for a genuine reason. But यहाँ से बंद किया हुआ. So unless there is interaction between people to people, ये बैठे हैं क्रिकेट के बहुत बड़े शायकीन में इनका शुमार है. It's also my passion. आप देख लें क्रिकेट की टीम कितने मुसीबत से, we are the hosts. And the matches are being played in UAE. इससे पहले we were the hosts. India wanted to play all the matches in Sri Lanka. Why did we agree to that? We should not have. We should have said, ये मेरा अपना view है. We should have said, so be it. If you don't want to come and play in Pakistan, सारे दुनिया की 8-10 टीमें पिछले 10 सालों में आके पाकिस्तान खेल चुकी. So what is the excuse that India has? We would have given them foolproof security. We even offered that you can play your matches, बीच में 6-7 दिन का gap है, you can go back, वहां से अमृतसर border से आप फिर आ जाएं खेलने के लिए, if that is the issue. So the point I'm trying to make कि उनका जो अभी mindset है ना, वो किसी चीज पे, ना visa, ना people to people contact, ना trade, ना medical visas, किसी चीज के ऊपर वो तैयार नहीं है. So I don't really, it's a very dismal state of affairs, but so this is how it is. आसान सवाल कीजिएगा.
Failed to put up evidence-based
data or even commentary about the things happening in this foundation. And your book, really lays the stone for that. I do not know if I'm very aware, but I think this book for me is really helpful. That puts so many things into light. शायद आपसे एक सवाल करना चाहती हूँ that you did a small stint in multilateral diplomacy in UNESCO. It goes here for 9/11. Actually, it was a very heart-wrenching moment. My son was at that time working in New York, and there was no connection for like 24 hours, and I didn't know they were all. But anyway, the point is that India at that time capitalized on the moment to sort of put up a convention. That's when the Convention on Terrorism happened at UNESCO. And it was so contentious. It was me on one side, with India on the other, and some other states. Luckily for us, despite the bad feeling in the EU, I was able to garner enough goodwill to have people on our side. But it was not an easy, I would say, fight to thrash out the language of the convention. Having said that, the point is that we, I think, as a country, I do not know who's to blame, has really failed to project the country as a terrorist-free country. And I do not know whose area of, I think it falls within all of us. But I also think it falls very largely on the foreign service, because they are the outreach in other countries. And I realized that that sort of soft diplomacy that was expected was not there. Even when I was there, I remember my ambassador calling me to his office at that time and telling me literally, Kutsana, you don't know anything about diplomacy. And I'm like, what do you think the job is? And I don't want to make it a personal thing, but his point was, when you sit at the gallery and there are all these countries, make sure you disagree with India. Make sure Afghanistan, you run them down. I mean, those are not the words, but that was the message. And Iran, we have nothing to do with that. And I'm like thinking, they come from this region. And this ambassador is telling me, and I openly said, unfortunately, India speaks a lot of sense. And I usually second that view. Afghanistan is one of my, we are very close friends, personally as well, for multiple reasons. And so with Iran, I have very close, and we actually honor each other at conventions and at meetings. So you know how it is, quid pro quo, you take some conventions. Now, that sort of short-sightedness, I think, made us lose a lot of it that we could have had. Luckily for us, we did win the executive board election while I was there. So what the other told me, forget about it. We will not win this time, but we will let you get. So I'm not laying the blame, but I'm just saying, why are we so slow to respond to the reality and not far-sighted enough? Incidentally, I've been to India a lot for my government job during the 1990s, and I think they were as bad. They have got better and worse. At that time, I couldn't go from Delhi to see the Taj Mahal. I was there for a while because that guy would not give us a visa, no matter what. So what I'm trying to say is that this is the solution that they build up. How come we get caught into it? They were always like that. So open to you.
Okay, well, आप भी बोलिएगा, but let me your observation is well taken, valid. It's a question of how strong or how well formulated your narrative is. In this day and age, narratives count a lot. किस तरीके से आपने अपना point of view present करना? Why should we be on the defensive when one could have easily cited examples of Indian interference, Indian acts of terrorism, जो सुबह शाम है. इसीलिए मैंने अभी कहा था कि I would be the first person to agree to India's desire to start the dialogue on terrorism, because हमारे पास भी इतने issues हैं to talk to them about. Living examples, कुलभूषण यादव, ये वो प्रॉक्सी वॉर सुबह शाम यहाँ पे चल रही हैं, वो अभी तक हमारे पास कुलभूषण यादव और कई चीजें जो इंडिया ने की हैं, जो अभी जाफर एक्सप्रेस का जो हुआ है, ये तो मैं अभी की बात कर रहा हूँ. बट इवन इन दोज टाइम्स, यू नो, इट ऑल डिपेंड्स के वेयर हु इज गिविंग द लीड, आगे लोग कैसे बातें कर रहे हैं. बट आई हैव ऑलवेज फेल्ट दैट वाज द टाइम that I was posted in Washington, I think, under a very able ambassador, Jamshed Market. And I would go with him to different meetings, and the way that he would project our point of view, and he incidentally had also served in the UN. मैं वो बात कर रहा हूँ जब वो Washington में. So it is not that अब देखिए ना, आपने foreign policy या जो भी आपका narrative है, in a sense it's also a mirror image of what is in the country. ठीक है, अगर आपके यहाँ आपस में ही कोई हम आहंगी नहीं है सूबों के दरमियान, यहाँ पे हो रहा है, तो आपकी बात को कौन सीरियसली लेगा बाहर. सो ये तो क्लीशे बन चुका है, टू फर्स्ट पुट योर ओन हाउस इन ऑर्डर बिफोर यू स्टार्ट टेलिंग द अदर्स कि हम क्या हैं. One should not punch above one's weight till the time that you achieve that status. So coming back to your point, I'm not disagreeing with you. मैं आपसे मुत्तफिक हूं, लेकिन कुछ चीजों को देखना पड़ता है कि what is the reason for that. Narratives बनाए जाते हैं. One should be proactive rather than reactive. मेरे सिविल सर्विसेज एकेडमी में मेरे डायरेक्टर जनरल थे, आई वाज डायरेक्टर सिविल सर्विसेज एकेडमी, मिस्टर परवेज मसूद, डीजी. वो हमेशा कहते थे कि one should not be a victim of change, one should be an agent of change. और उसके लिए आपको on a proactive basis, Pakistan's foreign policy should work on a proactive basis. अभी आप मिसाल लीजिए, आर्टिकल 370 जो खत्म किया है, what is the game plan? उससे पहले non-Kashmiris were not allowed to go and settle in Indian occupied Kashmir. अब लाखों के हिसाब से non-Kashmiris को इजाजत मिल गई है after article 370 has been done away with. जी, sorry, domicile वगैरह, उसका practical implication क्या हो सकता है? अगर एक दिन, मुझे लगता है कि ये जैसे एक दिन खड़े होके उनका लीडर या जो भी होगा कहेगा क्या वावेला दुनिया ने मचाया हुआ ऑन प्लेबिसिट, ओके वी आर रेडी फॉर इट. तो उसमें जो डेमोग्राफिक स्ट्रक्चर जो चेंज हो गया है, उसमें जो वहां के लोग हैं, तो हमारा ये होना चाहिए कि जो 370 के दिन उससे पहले जो डेमोग्राफिक स्ट्रक्चर था उसकी बेसिस के ऊपर प्लेबिसिट होना चाहिए. So this is something that one should keep thinking about. अभी से ये narrative जो है, दुनिया के कानों में ये बात डाल देनी चाहिए कि this is the game plan. This is probably what they're aiming for. One day they would get up and would like to look good in the eyes of the world. Okay, we are ready for it. And the result, obviously, वो यही होगा. इसी तरह जिक्र किया था यहाँ पे 2016 में उरी का अटैक हुआ. उस अटैक के फौरन बाद प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी मेड अ स्टेटमेंट दैट ब्लड एंड वाटर कैन नॉट फ्लो टुगेदर. आज से 9 साल पुरानी बात. अब उन्होंने उसकी प्रैक्टिकली उसको पॉलिसी बना के पेश कर दिया. सो हमारे लोग जो कहते हैं इट केम एज अ कंप्लीट सरप्राइज टू अस. व्हाई? आई मीन वन शुड हैव रेड द स्टेटमेंट राइटिंग ऑन द वॉल के he waiting for an opportunity, he got the excuse, उसमें terrorism भी ले आए, सब कुछ ले आए, और उसको अब उन्होंने held in abeyance which is totally illegal. इस तरह तो मैं सिर्फ ये कह रहा हूँ कि proactive होना बहुत जरूरी. And you will be happy to know that today in the Foreign Office, although I'm no longer actively a member of the ministry, but having served there, I keep my interest alive in what is happening there. वहां पे अब एक पब्लिक डिप्लोमेसी विंग बन गया, वहां पे मोर इम्पोर्टेंटली एक इकोनॉमिक डिप्लोमेसी विंग बन गया. सो जो ट्रेडिशनल फॉर्म्स ऑफ डिप्लोमेसी होते थे कि आपने एक रिपोर्ट लिखी, बैग में उठा के रिपोर्ट भेज दी, जो आपने पेरिस में देखा होगा, एक डिप्लोमेटिक बैग जा रहा है, उसमें रिपोर्ट जा रही है. बाय द टाइम द रिपोर्ट गेट्स टू द मिनिस्ट्री, इट इज हिस्ट्री, सबको सब कुछ पता होता है. तो ये जमाना है, ये दौर है कि आपको अपनी थोड़ी सी सोच में तब्दीली लानी चाहिए. प्रोएक्टिव हों, देखें, लोग मौजूद हैं, बड़े ज़हीन लोग हैं फॉरेन ऑफिस में हमारे, बट डायरेक्शन उनको अगर मिले और मिल रही है तो वो फिर इन चीजों के ऊपर काम करेंगे.
Thank you.
So,
And debate continues.
Last question. All right, sir. My name is Inamullah Marwat. I'm a yeah.
किधर है मरवत साहब?
Here,
अच्छा अच्छा
here.
अच्छा.
So my name is Inamullah Marwat. I'm a lecturer at the Department of Political Science and International Relations at the UMT Lahore. And I would say it's truly an enlightening experience to be a part of this book launch and especially listening to your insights. There's a slight change of gear. I mean, I'm asking this question out of curiosity. This is based upon your rich experience in the, especially in the ambassadorial positions and all these things. There's a popular perception in Pakistan that there is a huge gap between academia and policy making. I don't know you agree with it or does not agree with it. But point is that I'm just curious to know, you have seen policy corridors very closely. To what extent there is a traction for academic nuances in the policy making, because I think that can put us on track. I mean, we need to we all the time here. I mean, in this context, we are especially putting it in this way that we need to have a very composed approach towards deterrence. This was the question I asked Dr. Rabia in CAF, and she answered yes. She definitely put it. She put it in with a little bit, in a very, you can say, not emphatically that things are being bought in the policy making domain, but we are trying our best. But now you are coming from a policy domain. Maybe you can share your mind over this thing that to what extent there is attraction for or how exactly we can bridge this gap, because in Pakistan we are living in silo mentality. There is a silo mentality. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Marwat. It's a very pertinent, very important question, something that I can relate to easily. What you have said, that should be the situation. That should be the ideal situation. Any foreign policy सिर्फ फॉरेन ऑफिस में ही बैठ के नहीं बनाई जाती. किसी मुल्क में आप देख लें, the input from the academia, from the intellectuals, from the media, from the general public, even that matters. मेरा तो मौक़िफ़ ये होता था कि आप इदारिये जो हैं, op-ed pages जो हैं, और ख़ास तौर पे you'll be surprised, मैंने इंट्रोड्यूस कराया था कि जो उर्दू के ख़ास तौर पे अखबार हैं, उनके इदारिये, उनका, क्योंकि इंग्लिश अखबारों में, बहुत अच्छे अखबारों में लिखा जाता है, अब लोग ओपिनियन देते हैं, लेकिन जो ओपिनियन आपको मिलता है उर्दू के अखबारों में, that reflects the views of people like you and me. ठीक है, उसको देखें, उसके बेसिस के ऊपर बनाएं. इसी तरह आपको याद है वो मजीद निजामी साहब, उनसे मेरी अक्सर गुफ्तगू होती थी. वो कभी भी मुतमईन नहीं थे पाकिस्तान की पॉलिसी टुवर्ड्स इंडिया, और उनसे मैं उस वक्त आई वाज डायरेक्टर इंडिया, डीलिंग विद इंडिया. बिलीव मी, आई यूज्ड टू कम बैक एंड टेल माय सीनियर्स, इंक्लूडिंग अब्दुल सत्तार साहब जो एडिशनल सेक्रेटरी थे हमारे रीजन की, हु बिकेम द फॉरेन मिनिस्टर. इन फैक्ट ही वुड टेल मी कि तुम लाहौर जाते रहते हो, तो जब जाओ तो निजामी साहब से मिलके आके बताया करो कि उनकी क्या सोच है. ठीक है, लेकिन ये फिर डिपेंड करता है कि हु इज रनिंग द शो. लेकिन आपकी बात बिल्कुल सही है, और आज भी आप देखें, इसीलिए मैंने कहा कि ये जो डॉक्टर राबिया अख्तर ने तो बहुत किताबें लिखी हैं, इनकी बात को बड़े गौर से सुना जाता है और उस पर अमल किया जाता है. आई कैन टेल यू फ्रॉम पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस इन द फॉरेन ऑफिस कि इस किस्म के लोग, आप जैसे लोग जो बैठे हैं, वो क्या कह रहे हैं. लेकिन अब किसी मुल्क में देख लें, हम कहते हैं कि इसका अमल दखल नहीं होना चाहिए फॉरेन पॉलिसी में, उसका नहीं होना चाहिए, उसका नहीं होना चाहिए. अभी ये जो अभी शायद कुछ शॉर्ट टू यू, अभी हमारे इंटरनल कमेंट्स चलते हैं सऊदी अरेबिया और पाकिस्तान के साथ जो पैक्ट हुआ. मेरी सजेशन ये थी कि इसमें जैसे भी है, हमारी एक पार्लियामेंट है. पार्लियामेंट रिफ्लेक्ट्स the collective wisdom of all of us who have sent people back to the parliament. It should be debated in the parliament. उसके बारे में लोगों की ओपिनियन ली जाए, वही एक तरीका है लोगों की ओपिनियन लेने. फिर एक पब्लिक डिबेट करवा दें इस इशू के ऊपर. वी डोंट नो द कॉन्टोर्स ऑफ द एग्रीमेंट, लेकिन ये ऐसी चीजें हैं जिस पे हर एक पाकिस्तानी का हक है अपनी ओपिनियन देने के लिए. At the end of the day, looking at different inputs, the Foreign Office does come up with a policy. उसमें भी मुख्तलिफ इदारों के इनपुट होती है और उसमें कोई अचंभे की बात नहीं है. Even in a place like Washington, the State Department, which is the Foreign Office, the Department of Defense, which is the Pentagon, the CIA, the agencies, they all give their inputs to the White House before a foreign policy is formulated. सो हमें इस चीज के ऊपर भी वो करना नहीं चाहिए, इतराज नहीं करना चाहिए कि हमें ये कह रहे हैं. लेकिन एट द एंड ऑफ द डे जो प्रोफेशनल है उसकी ओपिनियन को हमेशा इंपॉर्टेंस देनी चाहिए, और उसका ओपिनियन जो है, जिस तरह आपने बिल्कुल सही फरमाया, वो बनना चाहिए ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ इनपुट फ्रॉम पीपल, इंटेलेक्चुअल्स लाइक यू. क्योंकि जो आप लोगों की सोच है, फॉरेन ऑफिस में आज मैं डायरेक्टर इंडिया हूं, कल मैं डायरेक्टर गल्फ होऊंगा, परसों में डायरेक्टर डिप्टी चीफ ऑफ प्रोटोकॉल होऊंगा, पासपोर्टों पर ठप्पे लगा रहा हूंगा. लेकिन जिन लोगों का आपने जिक्र किया उनका तो सारी उम्र इससे ताल्लुक रहेगा ना, एकेडमिया से. सो आई एग्री विद यू, और अगर नहीं है तो होना चाहिए. लेकिन लेट मी अश्योर यू कि थिंग्स हैव चेंज्ड काफी हद तक. राबिया, आप आई एम श्योर यू विल एंडोर्स दैट फ्रॉम टाइम टू टाइम द फॉरेन ऑफिस के जो टॉप हैं ऑफिसर्स, दे डू कंसल्ट डिफरेंट थिंक टैंक्स. इस्लामाबाद में एडवांटेज ये है कि वहां बहुत ज्यादा थिंक टैंक्स. एडवांटेज, मैं ये नहीं कह रहा गलती, एडवांटेज है. सो उनकी इनपुट ली जाती है. हमारे फॉरेन ऑफिस के लोग जाते हैं एट द लेवल ऑफ फॉरेन सेक्रेटरीज, एडिशनल फॉरेन सेक्रेटरीज, दे गो एंड टॉक टू देम, सेमिनार्स होते हैं, सब कुछ होते हैं. उनसे फिर जो वहां से हासिल करते हैं, दैट शुड बी रिफ्लेक्टेड इन द पॉलिसी. थैंक यू.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shahid Malik, Dr. Oksana Zia, and everyone, Dr. Amjad Maksi, I can see at the back, President Shabir Saab, and so many other familiar faces, friends, and colleagues. Thank you so much. At this, I'll bring the ceremony to the end. Tea is served, but before we go towards the tea, I'll like to request the authors and the guest of honor to be on the stage for a group photo. So Dr. Rabia,